Five Nights at Freddy's is made up of 11 years worth of games, stories, timeline debates, unsolved mysteries, and lore around different characters. And one of the most complicated characters that has recently been debated a lot after the release of the FNAF 2 movie can also still be debated about in the game's lore and its wider timeline. Of course, I'm talking about Michael Afton, and more specifically about his role in the modern era of the franchise. We all know his story, a redemption arc like no other that ended in FNAF Pizzeria Simulator after burning the remaining animatronics and freeing the souls attached to them, keeping himself in that fire, ending the tragedy that was Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. But what if he's still alive? What if he has a significant role in the modern lore? This is something I'm sure you've already seen be brought up with these amazing videos, and I've also tackled this mystery a few times before on the channel. So now I want to revisit this topic once more by going over every single possibility, and now that we have so many more projects and games to overlook, to really solve which one is more likely, or if we've really just been wrong about his character and he did really move on in FNAF 6. So let's look at 4 different answers to this mystery and try our best to finally put an end to one of the most important debates around Michael Afton. My name is Bronze Films, consider subscribing for more videos like this, and let's jump straight into it. Now the first theory or possibility that I want to look at is first centered around the idea that Michael did die in the FNAF 6 fire. By now I'm sure you've heard Henry's infamous ending speech that I know we're all hoping is either in the next FNAF movie or of course in the FNAF 6 movie when we get to that point. Here Henry does actually give us some clues and context to the protagonist's role in this ending and his plan to free the souls through this fire. Really the only time they're brought up here besides them being the manager and facing lawsuits.
And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be.
This obviously implies that the protagonist, who is most definitely Michael Afton, chose to stay in this fire, choosing to be a part of the end. This makes sense as there would be no reason to stay anymore, the same reason why Henry also chose to stay in the fire. All souls from the missing children incident and other victims of Williams like Charlie and Elizabeth would finally move on. Even William would get some sort of ending in an endless nightmare being tortured by the one you should not have killed. Perfect ending, right? Well, then we got the modern games by Studio Studios, which I love by the way. Games that had a good mix of new and old characters creating a new story centered around an endoskeleton, which is why this part of the franchise is known as the Mimic Arc. So with a surprising return of William Afton himself as either Burn Trap or Glitch Trap, or even both, this sparked a wave of theories of other characters also naturally returning that would also come back to stop him once more. Like Golden Freddy, who at this point has generational beef with William, Henry, who was the one who stopped him last time, or even Charlie Emily, who seems to be the vengeful one in a project like the FNAF 2 movie. But this would also include Michael Afton, the one who has been chasing after William since Sister Location took place in the timeline. And what better way for him to come back through an animatronic that is clearly different from the others and has tendencies to protect others, Glamrock Freddy. This is a theory I would say became widely popular after Game Theory's video, FNAF The Secret Afton, FNAF Security Breach. Here not only does matpat bring up supporting evidence to his Gregbot theory that had some interesting reactions, but in general he goes over the Afton family's return through different characters. The crying child is of course Gregory, with their similar appearances and because of Gregory's mysterious background. With Elizabeth he goes over the similarities to Vannesa, not only with their appearances but with their personalities that both seem to have been affected by William and the Glitch Trap virus. And finally that leaves Michael having to return through Glamrock Freddy. Here we know that the Pizzaplex was built on top of the FNAF 6 pizzeria and possibly other locations. We also know that Glamrock Freddy himself ventured down to the sinkhole to clear the path for someone and proceeded to say that he is not himself.
I know what this is. I have been here before. She brought me here. I found myself for the first time when I cleared the path. I did not want to, but I had no choice. But I can protect you. I am not me.
So what if after being down in the FNAF 6 pizzeria, Michael's soul would attach itself to the Glamrock Freddy animatronic, officially coming back? This is what many fans think makes Glamrock Freddy different from the others, different where he's not aggressive towards Gregory, different to where he's helping Gregory stop Vanny and Burn Trap, while it seems the other animatronics are under their control, different to where he escaped with Gregory and Vannesa and is most likely still with them in Help Wanted 2 and in Ruin. This would be Michael Afton protecting his younger brother as Gregory in a way he was never able to previously, another act to his redemption arc. It could even explain the opening for Security Breach, where Freddy shuts down on stage after presumably spotting someone specific in the crowd. What if this is Michael taking over the AI after he thinks he spots the crying child in the crowd since he looks almost identical to Gregory? A takeover so powerful that it shuts down Freddy's system and reboots him into safe mode, where he wakes up now as Michael and then Security Breach takes place. Or it could explain the ending where Burn Trap starts to control Glamrock Freddy for some unknown reason that I still don't think we have a concrete answer for. This would be William stopping Michael from getting closer to stopping him. But back to this video, Game Theory brings up great evidence like dialogue between Glamrock Freddy and Gregory that is very similar to dialogue we saw in FNAF 4 after the bite of 83 when William and Michael are saying goodbye. Dialogue is also mentioned where Glamrock Freddy acknowledges why Gregory is not in the customer database and that he remembers him from somewhere before it cuts off. This proves Gregory is special and different from the other children, and that Freddy or Michael knows him from some specific place. Matpat believes this somewhere is the underground pizzeria where they would first reunite. There are other smaller parallels between the two, but a big one and one also brought up in this video is this image from the Princess Quest ending, which we now 100% know is the canon one. Here we have Gregory, Freddy's head, and Vannesa sitting on the hillside that is probably the exact same one from the FNAF 6 ending and from Secret of the Mimic where David and the Mimic also sit on. Here Gregory is holding a golden Freddy popsicle with a bite out of its head, which is a direct parallel to the crying child and to Fredbear taking a bite out of him. Vannesa is holding ice cream, the same thing that Circus Baby used to lure Elizabeth to her death. This just leaves the Freddy head to be the last Afton kid, Michael. I could just see the Freddy head also being some parallel to Michael that relates to the bite of 83 as well, because he made the crying child lose his head in a sense. That's all he's left with here. So boom, Michael is Glamrock Freddy. Solved, right? Well, like any theory, it has its certain problems. To me, it's their personalities that I just don't think match up. Now, don't get me wrong, we know basically nothing about Michael or what he was like besides one monologue, and I wouldn't even rely on Michael Afton from the FNAF 2 movie, as that seems like a different rendition of this character. But just look at how Freddy acts and who do you think he's acting like? At the start of the game, Freddy is scared of being caught by Vannesa, in general is scared of breaking the rules, and is even scared of hurting the other animatronics who are his friends. To me, this sounds a lot more like the crying child, someone who seems constantly scared. We can even look at Freddy's design from FNAF Ruin, where he is not only missing his head, but he has a hole in his chest making a mouth. And what other animatronic in the entire franchise has a similar design with its stomach being a mouth? That's right, Nightmare Fredbear, who is Golden Freddy, who is of course also the crying child. His stomach even opens up, so again I think this design choice is to tell us that Glamrock Freddy is the crying child. This also doesn't have to mean that it's actually the crying child possessing Freddy, but instead we can look at another idea of what makes Glamrock Freddy different. It could simply be that Freddy's AI is much more advanced and almost sentient compared to the others. This could be because of the Endoskeleton Daycare Center, where we know Freddy basically grew up in and was taught what's right or wrong, exactly how we see in this minigame in Help Wanted 2. Where we're teaching the programming of the endos. So it could be some scenario that in this room, Freddy's AI was also being fed information from Fazbear Entertainment to either speed up the process or to build his personality. Just like in FNAF Help Wanted with the VR game. This could then result in him almost copying the personality from really any other character we know of, as it's information he's just being fed. And I would say that his AI just being advanced is currently the community consensus on Glamrock Freddy. So where does that leave Michael? Well, looking at really the next two possibilities, both centered around the same thing, what if he's actually alive? If we're really going to say that he's alive, the first idea is that he's alive but is hiding around the Pizzaplex. Now I've already gone over all the evidence in depth in a couple of videos, so here I'm instead going to throw all the evidence out there from FNAF Security Breach to Help Wanted 2, so get ready because it's honestly a lot. In FNAF Security Breach, this room was found within the Pizzaplex and it's a 1-for-1 replica of Michael's room from FNAF Sister Location. Why would the Pizzaplex make a room from the Afton family's house if no one would ever see it or know about it? Well, the consensus is that it was for Michael. The TV even works and there's real popcorn, which to me would imply he's there frequently or that he even lives there. In this room there's also this cryptic message. When decoded it reads a long message, but I only want to look at the beginning. It reads, "Break and mend, I built the breath." When looking at one of the security offices, I believe we actually get our first look at what Michael Afton looks like and at his design with the Steel Wolf FNAF games. Next to the computers we find this framed photo of two people with writing under it. Taking a closer look, both people are wearing a Glamrock Freddy theme mask and the writing reads Fred Masquerade, and the day under it looks like it reads 2025 2025 or 2035. When looking at the two people, they are both wearing purple jackets and a mask covering their faces, but we can still see their necks and their skin tones. When looking at the person to the right, their neck has a very different skin tone compared to the person on the left. It almost appears to be even purple. Similar shade of purple as the jacket. And who else has purple skin? Well, that's simply Michael Afton. No one else in the franchise literally has purple skin like Michael, and not only that, but the Freddy mask is also a hint to this character. The person on the left does have a Glamrock Freddy mask as it resembles the shape and design of this character's head, but comparing it to Michael's, the mask has sharper cheeks, a longer snout, and smaller eyes. If anything, it looks like it's actually a Foxy mask, just redesigned to have a Glamrock Freddy design. And Michael himself wore a Foxy mask in FNAF 4, and Foxy has always been a way to represent this character. In FNAF Ruin, this piece of evidence comes from Nair Raven and this amazing video, the theory that solved Michael Afton's fate FNAF theory, which you should all totally check out. Here in the entrance of the ruined Pizzaplex, we find different pieces of graffiti scattered around the building like these about Vanny. And on the wall before you find the Roxy walkie-talkie, you find this graffiti of Foxy's hook with a name next to it. This faded purple name next to it seems to read Mike. The M and I are more visible, while the K and E are almost completely gone. So it looks like Michael himself created this Foxy hook graffiti art and spray painted his nickname next to it. This was most likely when Gregory and Vannesa also ventured to the Pizzaplex, as we see graffiti that supposedly came from both of them. So we can assume that Michael was also with him and left art of his own before leaving. Now during the ending, right after the mimic is released, Gregory also mentions how his friend has access to the building maps. He also tells Cassie to follow someone's instructions, but the name is cut out by static.
Friend has access to the building maps. Just follow the instructions.
Many fans, including myself, first thought that this person was Vannesa, as that's who we saw Gregory escape with in the canon ending. But what if this wasn't Vannesa? What if this was actually Michael Afton, who appears once more in the franchise in Ruin? Why cut out Vanessa's name if we already know who she is, and if her name has already been brought up in multiple games by this point? So what if they're trying to instead hide a name that we're not supposed to know yet? With Help Wanted 2, evidence isn't as prominent as other games. The best I could find is this Foxy mask that exists inside the Vanny network. I see the Vanny network as a hive mind, meaning every single person who owns one is somehow connected to everyone else in the network. This could mean that they can see what other people see in what they collect, like in Ruin, where Cassie can find collectibles with the Vanny mask. Collectibles that I think belong to other people who also wore a mask, like Cassie's dad, who we play as in FNAF Help Wanted 2. In the Princess Quest ending, we can find a chest containing a Bonnie mask with this text above it. This looks familiar. The same mask we can also find as a collectible in Ruin. Here Cassie is finding her dad's mask from FNAF 4, which also makes him the same character as the Bonnie bully. But that's not it. In Ruin, you can also find this Foxy mask, maybe Michael's Foxy mask from FNAF 4. These are the only two masks that can be collected, which could be for a reason. This would mean that Michael does own a Vanny mask and maybe also ventured to the abandoned FNAF 6 pizzeria. Now, all of this evidence is under the assumption that Michael is living in the Pizzaplex and is simply hiding from everyone, possibly a reason we still haven't seen him yet. He would be back to stop William, Glitchtrap, Vanny, or even the mysterious CEO that could be anyone like Miss Afton or even F10 and 4 from Secret of the Mimic. This could be exactly why he chose not to stay in this fire. He knew it would never truly end, so he would escape and would then be around till a new LLC for Fazbear was formed, prompting him to come back in the shadows, just like he says in his monologue. So for one last piece of evidence, in Monty Golf you could find these footprints of what appears to be from a person not wearing any shoes, which could line up with Michael and his design from Sister Location where he's not wearing any footwear. You can also find this small RV that looks like someone lived inside of it. We find pizza and other hints of someone living there, so what if it was Michael? After the Pizzaplex was destroyed in Security Breach, Michael would live in Monty Golf until he would meet up with Gregory and Vannesa. So what are the issues here? Well, to me it's hard to believe that Michael would actually be able to go undetected for a couple of years that the Pizzaplex might have been opened, and where is he during the events of Security Breach or really any other game? And why would the Pizzaplex build his room from Sister Location if he was supposedly hiding and everyone thinks he's dead? Well, the other main issue is that I would argue there's also a lot of evidence to him working at the Pizzaplex, which is how he would have his room added to the Pizzaplex, which also brings me to the next possibility. What if Michael is alive as the CEO of the new Fazbear Entertainment? This theory builds on the idea that someone had to form the new LLC of Fazbear Entertainment after closing Pizzeria Simulator, and that someone had to be working in the background to make new locations and games possible. So here this would be Michael as the new CEO. In FNAF AR and Security Breach, they highlight how the head of the company made Vannesa head security guard even though she didn't have the proper qualifications. Could this have been Michael promoting Vannesa for some reason, like that she reminded him of his dead sister. Now, something I looked at in my last video on special delivery was the technology that seemed extremely similar to William's tech when he was alive, and how strange it was that it's returning here. I brought up the point that the person bringing this technology back had to have been close to William to even know about it or to even know how it functions, and again, this could have easily been Michael. With further evidence we see in Help Wanted and in future games, it's the idea that certain things just wouldn't exist without the existence and knowledge of Michael Afton. In this game we see mini games for the 3 core games, and we also see mini games using certain animatronics like Nightmare Fredbear or Ennard. So what if the information of these animatronics used for this VR game that other people just wouldn't know about came from Michael, who we most likely play as in the first 3 games and even in FNAF 4 based on evidence from the survival logbook. In FNAF AR, one of these scrapped email addresses actually directly confirmed that he was alive and was in contact with Fazbear Entertainment. When looking at the email, it reads, ID alert to M. Afton, mafton@bigbearmills.net. Also, I have emailed this address but got no response, so Michael is, he's ignoring us, guys. Now, obviously the email M. Afton stands for Michael Afton, and it's hard to argue that it could belong to any other character from the series. Why else would Michael have a company email if he didn't work there? With Security Breach, let's look at this simple sticky note. Meeting with Smith at 5 p.m. Smith could be anyone, so to connect it to Michael, let's go all the way back to Five Nights at Freddy's 2. On nights 1 through 6, we play as a security guard named Jeremy Fitzgerald, but then suddenly on night 7, we play as someone named Fritz Smith. Fritz Smith is believed to be an alias for Michael Afton when he secretly worked there, a name similar to Mike Schmidt, which was his alias when he worked in the pizzeria in the first FNAF game. So if Fritz Smith really is Michael Afton, then could this meeting also be referring to Michael? Now, these are smaller pieces of evidence that you could take either way, but this is something I discovered during a live stream, so shout out to all these people who helped me during the stream. The theory we came up with, which if you want to give a name for, we came up with DJ Michael theory. But here the idea is that Michael was controlling the DJ booth that overlooks the main stage. Here in the opening, it would be Michael that would remotely change Glamrock Freddy's systems for some reason, making him collapse on stage. So while all this happening, Michael would be up here. The reason I'm even coming to this conclusion, which is far stretch I admit, are because of these small details. We find a Foxy plush on the desk, which we all know can connect to Michael. These sticky notes on screen showing 3 lightning bolts, a packaging label, hearts, pizza, and candy. The lightning bolts could be relating to Glamrock Freddy, while the shipping label could be something related to Burn Trap or to the Mimic. But with the candy, we know it's something Michael loved, as in the week before we learn of gum wrappers that most likely belong to Michael. With the hearts, people in chat immediately connected it to the hearts that Michael would draw in the survival logbook. Hearts that you can find in different pages in red ink that again mean that it was drawn by Michael. On top of this, the pizza on the same sticky note could also connect to it probably being Michael's favorite food. One of the questions from the survival logbook reads, list 10 reasons why applying to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza seemed like a good idea. And Michael only writes in, employees get free pizza. I know all of these seem far stretch, but DJ Michael and all these pieces of evidence only work if Michael at least worked at the Pizzaplex and maybe even took the role as the new CEO. Now my only issue is motive. Why? Why bring back Fazbear Entertainment after everything that happened? Why hire Vanessa's head security guard? If he did create the Pizzaplex, then we can assume he knew about the sinkhole and about either William's corpse or about the Mimic being down there, and he probably knew about the blob as well. It just doesn't make sense for Michael to know about these things and to not do anything about them. That's why I still think the CEO could be someone else like Miss Afton or even F10 and 4. Or it's a mix of possibilities, where Michael started off working for the Pizzaplex, but then after finding out what was truly going on with things like Burn Trap, he would go into hiding to stop them. Or we're just wrong about all of this, which brings me to the last possibility. Michael Afton is actually dead. What if Michael really did die in the FNAF 6 fire and isn't coming back? Now the truth is this possibility is just as likely as the other ones, in that there is a good amount of evidence for each possibility, including this one. I think as the games were releasing, it felt like the Afton family was making a comeback, but now as we have gotten even more games released and have had more time to reflect on the earlier Steelwool games, it can easily be argued that they were never supposed to return and that the focus was supposed to be on the Mimic and this new family. Burn Trap, for example, is actually the Mimic. Vanessa is just a new character. Gregory is instead connected to David from Secret of the Mimic, and this mysterious CEO is just Fiona or M1. Every single character we thought was returning could easily be someone new from this new family, including Michael. The person living in the shadows could instead be Edwin Murray, who would survive being attacked by the Mimic and would make a return to the Pizzaplex, just like we see in the tales from the Pizzaplex novels. But if you really want an answer, I think with all the evidence, Michael started off working for the Pizzaplex and would then go into hiding after finding out the CEO's plan with Burn Trap and Vanny. He would then team up with Gregory and Vanessa to either set up Nexus that has probably been down there this entire time, or to trap the Mimic once again. But really, I think the only way we're gonna get a concrete answer is with the next FNAF game that most likely has Abyss in its name. I've already made a video going over all the teasers and connections connections to Sister Location that this game might have, which is why many fans believe that not only will Cassie survive the elevator fall, but that she will fall into the Sister Location bunker. If this really does happen, this is the perfect chance to introduce Michael as a supporting protagonist in the story. He could be the one to show Cassie around and to be the one to help her escape. We could even get more voice lines and finally get some 3D model for this character, but that's just a theory.
A game!
With all of that said, this is all of the evidence and reasoning we have for Michael having some role in the modern era of the franchise, so what do you guys think? Is Michael alive? Is he possessing Glamrock Freddy, or did we really see the last of this character in Pizzeria Simulator? Make sure to comment down below any thoughts or theories. Also consider hitting that like and subscribe button, and thank you all so much for watching.